This is Cars and Bids, and I am Doug DeMuro, and today we're going to talk about wagons. Cars and Bids does amazingly well with wagons, so I want to talk about why I think that is, and I also want to show you some of my favorite recent wagon auctions that we've had. So let's get started. Okay, so wagons on Cars and Bids. Wagons really are probably our very best success story. Of all types of cars, we do the very best with wagons. For some proof, here's some interesting data. Over the last month, I'm filming this sort of mid-late April, over the last month we've had 21 wagons come up on the site, and all 21 wagons have sold, 100% sale rate. The sale rate for the site as a whole is in the low 80s, like 80 to 83%, 100% on wagons. We haven't missed our reserve and failed to sell a BMW wagon in the last 8 months. That's 46 cars now in a row, BMW wagons, that we have auctioned and sold for over the reserve price, or if it was no reserve, it sold on Cars and Bids. 8 months, 45 for 45, stretching into the middle of last year on BMW wagons. We've really become the place to sell BMW wagons. And it's the same deal with Audi. Looking back over the last 50 Audi wagons we've had, we are 47 for 50 selling them. So a 94% sale rate on Audi wagons. This is the place for wagons. And you could go through all sorts of other different wagons, even non-European ones, Roadmasters, CTS-V wagons. We have done well. AMG wagons. We are the wagon place. So I want to talk about why that is first, and then I'll get through some of my favorite ones. I think the reason that wagons do so well with enthusiasts is obvious because they combine practicality like you'd get from an SUV or a crossover, but with a car-like driving experience. So you can still have an enjoyable, low, fun, in some cases very fast and high-performance car, and you're not really sacrificing anything in terms of practicality. And that's kind of the car enthusiast dream. I can take my kids in it and still have an enjoyable car, and putting those together is a pretty cool thing. And they're just kind of like a special thing. Everybody's got a crossover and SUV. Car enthusiasts are always looking to do something a little different, a little more exciting, and wagons are that. They're just not around all that much anymore. Now, I also think another reason that wagons do so well on Cars and Bids is my following. Obviously, a lot of the buyers and sellers and users of Cars and Bids are viewers of mine. And I'm a wagon guy, and I always have been. I had a CTS-V wagon. My very first YouTube video was that car, and a lot of my columns on Jalopnik years ago were about it. I've had 2 different E63 AMG wagons. I currently have an Audi RS2, which is a very special station wagon. And so a lot of people who are into wagons have kind of come, to follow me over the years because we have similar tastes, and now they've ended up on the site. So it makes sense that wagons are so strong, both for enthusiast reasons and for like Doug audience reasons, essentially. But so we've really had some amazing wagons. We've had great success. I want to talk through some of my very favorite, at least recent wagon sales on Cars and Bids. Unquestionably, my #1 favorite wagon that we have ever auctioned was this 2001 Audi RS4 Avant. It was Nogaro blue. It was relatively unmodified. This car was never sold in the United States, but some people had federalized them, which is a very expensive, time-consuming process to get it legal here, and it had been done for this car, federalized. It sold for $91,000, which is a record price for an RS4 Avant from this era in the United States, and I was thrilled that it sold. I have never wished that I had bought a car on Cars and Bids more than this one. I considered a big mistake that I didn't. I reached out to the buyer of this car, not to try to buy it from them, but to see if I could review it, and I did. I have filmed a video with that car, and it's going to be going up in the next few weeks or months, so look forward to that. But this is a very, very special car and very rare. These RS4 Avants had a powertrain by Cosworth, which at the time was owned by Volkswagen. They had big power. They were very, very cool and special cars, and I was thrilled that the seller sold this with us. He recognized how into wagons we are, and we were able to deliver a good result for a very good car. Okay, next up, here's some more, another of my very favorite wagons we've sold recently. It's split into 2 parts. This 2020 Mercedes-AMG E63 wagon in Gulf Blue, which sold for $125,000, and also this 21 AMG wagon in Lunar Blue, Dark Blue, which sold for over $140,000. The 21 AMG wagon is a very special car because there was a facelift to the E-Class in 21, and it got some good new technology and a couple of other real benefits. But then it was all the V8 AMG cars were discontinued. So about halfway through that model year, they stopped making these cars, and they haven't come back yet. So for 21, there's a small portion of facelifted V8 AMG models, and there haven't been any 22s, and I'm not sure that car is ever going to come back. So I think the 21s are going to be very, 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 very sought after long term. So I really kind of wanted that car. It's a really special vehicle. But what I really wanted was this 20 in this Gulf blue color. This is a really cool car. There's not a lot of paint to sample outside the Porsche world, but that's what this is. The factory built the car in this special Gulf blue, and it got great money. And this one annoys the heck out of me because it sold on the site. I really wanted it when it sold. And the buyer got it, and I think he's in Pennsylvania, and he made an Instagram devoted just to this car. And he tags me in every post, and it's like taunting me every time I see it. I'm like, damn it! Should have bought that car. It's just such a cool car. And this one sold kind of right before the market really took off last year, just started to take off in June of 21. And I think it would be worth at least as much as he paid for it now, if not more. It's just a very special car. I love wagons. I love AMG wagons. And I really want this car. Every time I see it on Instagram, I have regret. Next up, more wagons we've done well with. We have now auctioned 4 different Cadillac CTS V-Wagons, and we've sold all 4. We have 2 6-speed manuals that we've sold. We've done well on CTS V-Wagons. I owned a V-Wagon back in the day, almost 10 years ago now, and it was a very cool and special car. These continue to be very special among enthusiasts. People love them, and I really, really have been thrilled to be able to sell a bunch of CTS V-Wagons. We really are the wagon place, and those who have trusted us with CTS V-Wagons have been very, very happy with the results. The most recent one we sold was actually kind of an interesting situation. It was a 6-speed manual car, but it had been in a major accident like 6 years ago or something like that, 3 years ago. And so it sold for only $52,000, which is cheap for a V-Wagon, but if you didn't care that it was pristine, you got an amazing deal on a manual V-Wagon. And I'd said this to a lot of my friends, being like, you should buy this. This is your last chance to buy one of these for under 80 grand. Like, here's it. And the seller was happy with the number, but I thought it was a pretty cool car and a cool deal. Okay, next up, cool wagons we've done. We've now auctioned 3 different new Audi RS6 Avant models. So the latest RS6 with massive horsepower. We've auctioned 3 of them. We've sold 2. But the really cool one was the first one because the seller decided to sell it with no reserve. So it was just whatever happened, happened. And it sold for $115,000, which doesn't seem like all that much money now because these have really shot up since then. But this car had 11,000 miles on it. The seller had already driven it a lot. It was really getting his enjoyment out of it. But also the market was just a little slower then, and I think this car would be worth more now. But it was really cool to be able to sell RS6 Avants, one of my very favorite cars in the market now. So happy it's being sold in the United States. And to see one sell with no reserve was a very cool and special thing. Now, in that same vein, we have also auctioned quite a few Audi S6 Avants, which the S6 Avant has only ever been sold here in the mid-90s and then also from 2002 to 2003. I think we sold a couple of the mid-90s ones. Looks like just one, but we sold 9 of the 0203 cars, and some of them have been very well done. So these cars were known for having transmission failure. They were all sold with automatic transmissions, and that transmission died. But a lot of people are doing swaps to a 6-speed manual. So we just recently sold an 02 S6 Avant with the V8 and a 6-speed manual swap for $27,500, which is a great number. Previously, we sold a nice one also with a 6-speed manual swap for $21,500. And we've had a couple other 6-speed manual swaps. A very common conversion because these cars are the transmissions are just not all that reliable. But it's really cool to see these come up. This is like a mid-size familyable wagon that you can drive around with a V8 and a manual transmission if it's had the swap done. And we've done exceptionally well on these. We've had 9 0203 S6 Avants on the site. All 9 of them have sold. They've all done well. The sellers have always been happy, and I'm sure the buyers have too, because that is a very special car, and Audi's never gonna do anything like that again. And also on the subject of Audi wagons, we had another very special one. This 2008 Audi S4 Avant sold for $75,000. The reason for that is it was a perfect clone of an RS4. The RS4 Avant was a vehicle that was made on this body style, but it was never sold in North America. But this person created an RS4 Avant with the right body panels, the right grille, it was perfect, and the right motor. So it's not just like a clone for style, but it was perfect. And it was a really, really, really cool car, and it sold for a great number, and that was a neat thing to see on the site too. So like I said, people have really started to realize we are the wagon place. And speaking of conversions, this 1995 BMW 318i was a full M3 touring conversion. BMW didn't make an M3 wagon in this body style, so this person made it instead, and this car sold for a little over $25,000, and I just think it's the coolest thing in the world. I still want this car. It's another one that I kind of regret not buying, but it's really cool, and it was done right, which is to say they did a full M3 conversion, but then they didn't like lower it and put neons on it and dumb stuff. Like they made it look like what the factory would have done if they had done it. And I think it just looks fantastically cool. I love the E36 wagon to begin with, but adding M3-ness to it just makes it that much better. So there you go. Those are wagons. We've done incredibly well with wagons. We will continue to do incredibly well with wagons. I wanted to make a video to highlight it. It's a small segment of our cars that we sell. It's a small segment of the population who's interested in them, but they're worthy of talking about because they're cool and special, and who doesn't want a neat family wagon that's also sporty?